Brutal. We used to call the Fort Worth tournament the Vietnam of rugby.
Well,
That turf
That's
field
always
was
fun.
horrible.
Oh,
It
well,
was always-
you'd be up there playing on turf in like and it would always be like the late September or early October. It'd be hot.
and you'd get staph infection.
Oh,
That
it
was
just,
because the Austin guys brought it with them. That's the only reason. The Fort Worth guys never got staff.
no, the worst place for the staff was Almost Basin down in San Antonio, man. Sitting at floodplain and you'd get down there and just like, oh.
Yeah.
We were real glad when San Antonio moved their pitch.
And one thing about Fort Worth, we never had to worry about rainouts.
I just remember playing at Hark back when it was next to a YMCA and it was like running on moguls.
Oh
So
yeah.
many little hills.
What,
and
you
stuff.
didn't like that?
Oh,
I mean, that was the feature. Then you had all the fire ants and the
sprained
big
their ankles on that
canyon
thing.
that broke. Right during the drought years, we had a 2-foot crack down the center of the pitch.
I remember that.
There would be crevasses.
Yeah.
I remember having to dig out a hole to drain that field on a Sunday morning at 6 a.m. so we could play the Blacks. Because they came down on Saturday, we got rained down, and we made them come back on Sunday morning.
Well, I remember when it was clear to everyone that the Blacks pitch was not named after a person.
Yeah. I was gonna say that was the worst when it started out.
First game I ever played back in the early 80s, and the first time anybody ever threw me a ball in a match, and it was at Burr Field. And I can still remember seeing the ball coming towards me and seeing the grass burr stuck in the ball. It's just like, oh, it's like, I'm not going to drop the first pass anybody's ever thrown me in a game. And it's just like, oh.
Well, at least you didn't have to worry about dropping it after that.
No, once you got your hand in front of it, it was like Velcro. It was going to stick. But, oh, yeah, it was before they had the irrigation. It was hard. It was covered in grass burrs. We used to do everybody bring out old sheets and blankets, and we'd put a line across the field, shoulder to shoulder on one end of the pitch, and we would just drag the field to collect up as many of those burrs as we could. And then we'd bundle them all up and throw them in a bonfire.
All right, Kirk, I think we're ready. I think we've got about 20 people, so maybe some more will come, but.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to be surprised if today's meeting is a lower attendance than what we have seen in the past, and we don't really know how many official clubs we've got, given COVID and everything else. So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. So this is our mid-year AGM for the 2021 cycle. I suspect we'll spend most of the time talking about return to play and answering questions about what we're going to be doing for the next few months and in the spring. But because financials, there's not a lot to talk about. But let's go ahead and do the roll call, Wendy, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
All right, I tried to get most people as they were coming in. There's a few phone numbers that I need to confirm. So let me start with those. Let's see. There's a 469-266-3361. And you might be muted. Okay, we'll come back. Let's see. Actually, I think that's the only number, right?
If you're
Yep,
on
I
the
can hear
phone,
you.
I think you hit *6 to unmute.
Do you hear me now? Okay, yeah,
Yes.
I forgot the 6. I just hit star. Yeah, that's me, Wendy. My normal number.
I thought it might be you. Okay, cool. Just gonna put you down here versus now 469. Okay, cool. All right. So I know some of you and your clubs right off the top of my head, but it sometimes gets hard to keep track of all the names. So I'm still gonna go down the list. Anybody from Abilene? Alamo City? Alliance, we got Michael. Angelo State Women? Any ARPTC? Blacks or Huns? All right, I saw Britt is here from the Vaux. Any Bay Area men or women? All right, Corpus? No. Okay, we got Gordon and Jim for dark. Any from the women, or are you two representing the women as well?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, Diablos?
Yeah, you got me.
Is that for the Diablos? Sorry, who's me?
Yes. Yes, Caesar.
Oh, Caesar, okay. Thank you. All right, Quins?
I mean, I don't
Men or women?
technically represent the Quins anymore, but I could put on my jersey
You
if
want
you
to?
want me to.
Okay, we'll put you down until somebody says otherwise. All right, for the Reds, we got Jeff and Jeff. And that's for the women too also, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Denton men.
Andrew Chapman, I'm here.
Perfect, thanks, Andrew. And then I saw we got Marie for the Denton women. Welcome. Fort Worth, men or women? Okay, Fort Hood. Fort Sill. Galveston. Grand Prairie, men or women? There you are, John.
Yeah, me. Yeah, me. Yes, thanks.
All right, Rugby HTX. We're gonna have a call without Grant Cole. Whoa, it's gonna be weird. Houston Arrows.
I think his voice is gone from last night.
Maybe. All right, Hark, I've got Robert and Glenn for men and women.
Yep.
Perfect. Hurt. Kingwood, we have Harv.
Yeah, I'm here, Wendy.
Awesome. Laterne women. Anybody from Little Rock women? All right, Lost Souls. McAllen men or women? Midland. All right, I saw Rob from OKC Tribe.
Yep, I'm here.
Perfect.
Rod.
And then, sorry?
Rod.
Yeah.
With a
Oh,
D.
no, sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. Thank you.
Get the other B.
Other rugby club, I saw Justin. And Justin, by the way, I keep running into your players in Pflugerville. It's really fun. They all seem
Nice
very
to go.
nice. Sam Houston women. San Antonio men or women. San Marcos. We got Drew, I saw for Shreveport. Texas A&M women. Okay, TRRA, I know Kat is at work, but I didn't know if anybody else was on for them. Okay, I will represent. Texas State women or Texas Tech women. Anybody from Tyler? I don't think they exist anymore, but just want to leave them on
Yeah,
for
I
a little
don't
bit.
think so.
Yeah. Any more women's colleges? Oklahoma, North Texas, Houston, Texas UT. Is Chris on? I didn't see Chris. San Antonio women. Okay. West Houston or Woodlands? All right, so that's the clubs, and then we like to just any individuals. So I saw Ron is on. Usually Blue's on, but I didn't see him yet.
I see John Conmey is just logged in for Quinn's. He put a note in chat.
Oh, I see him. Okay, thank you. Perfect. And then Rob L. I think that's the only other person I have that I don't. Are you with a club or just an individual? You might be muted. Okay, Rob L., you are on the list. All right, and then board members, we've got Kirk, Drew, Dodge, not a board member, but admin, myself. Any other board members? John, I'm going to put you as 0 since we have you
You've got
on Grand Prairie, but you're here. Anybody else?
I think Molly's gone. You're
Here.
outdated. You need to update that.
Oh yeah, sorry. This is just a copy
Yeah.
that I
Yeah,
use
it's
every
from
year.
last
Sorry
year.
about that.
Yeah. Marie's here, isn't she?
Yep, but I'll keep her under her club.
Oh, okay.
Wendy, on your Facebook feed, somebody said James from CCRFC is on, but
Oh,
I guess
cool.
they're
Thank
watching
you.
on Facebook.
Awesome. That works. We'll count you. So let me go to Corpus. Thanks, Justin.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, I'll keep this up, and if we need to change, or if anybody wants to come on the chat or put it on Facebook or put it wherever you want, we will be happy to keep that updated. All right, Kirk. I don't know if you went over the agenda. I'm trying to keep track of a lot of things here.
No, we're good. Yeah. So we've done the roll call. We'll go through the State of the Union and talk about the 50th anniversary and the financials. I think that'll be reasonably quick. And then return to play and Q&A will probably be the bulk of today's meeting. As far as the State of the Union, and for those who were on during the pre-meeting chat, we are hitting right now today at basically a year anniversary of the COVID shutdown, and just now getting back to being open for play. So the State of the Union is kind of coming out of hibernation. So we have very few clubs or players registered with the TRU. We've got a lot more registered with USA Rugby because of the training membership, which was just the insurance only for training during the COVID period. But we've got very few who have registered for TRU membership yet, which is not at all surprising because there weren't any games to be played or any value to be had from that membership until the COVID shutdown ended. So we are in okay shape financially. As far as our reserve, we've had very little income, but we've had very little expenditures, and we'll see that when we get into the finances. As for where we are looking forward, a lot of question marks. It is our hope that we will see things ramp up fairly quickly once people start playing rugby and get back into it, and that folks will come back. But we fully expect, not just in Texas, but at the national level as well, fully expect that there's going to be a dip in membership, and that we will, probably be spending the next year to 18 months rebuilding membership numbers and activities as we recover both from COVID and from the USA Rugby bankruptcy. So there's been a lot of chaos in the last 15 to 18 months in US Rugby, and we're going to be taking some time to probably take a similar amount of time to build back out of it. But that's more or less the State of the Union. I mean, we are well positioned to work through this reopening process. but we are dealing with a lot of unknowns, and I'd be lying if I said that I knew exactly how it was all going to work out. Things change on an almost daily basis. We released a return to play new policy on Monday, and then on a Tuesday, the governor made an announcement that sort of changed how we had to look at our own policy that we just released. So things change on a daily, weekly basis, and we're all just trying to keep up. So it's interesting times. Any questions on the general state of the union, or should we just move on to the first agenda item? Okay, we're hearing none. Let's go on to the Hall of Fame slide. So this year is the 50th anniversary of the Texas Rugby Union. We do have a Hall of Fame class that we weren't able to induct in person last year because of the pandemic. We are looking to do a Hall of Fame ceremony and summit and 50th anniversary celebration banquet this year. We are looking at the fall. We've had conversations with the Hall of Fame members who trend towards the older side. I think I'm the second or third youngest person in that group, and general feeling there is that we don't want we do want to do an in-person event to celebrate the 50th anniversary and to recognize all of our Hall of Fame members. And we don't want to do an in-person event until the health vaccine is more prevalent and the health situation is a little bit better. So we are currently looking to select a site and find a facility to do the summit and Hall of Fame in the fall. We will be having some 50th anniversary kit that will be shirts that will be getting made and be putting on sale, and there'll probably be some other events as we move forward. But that is the plan with the Hall of Fame. As far as the summit activities, which are primarily education activities, we've done some education online. USA Rugby has really been working to move their education online to the full extent that they can. Obviously, some of the practical on the field stuff for refs and coaches is tough to do in an online environment. But so we'll be continuing to do more in rugby generally, and in Texas specifically, more virtual education. But we will get back to in-person clinics and classes as soon as we can. Any questions on 50th Hall of Fame or Summit? Okay, right on. Well, let's move on to the financials. And if you want, Wendy, you can just go ahead and share that one. Yep, that's the one. Okay, so the budget, what I did for the budget this year, what we did for the budget this year is we basically left most of the costs as at the beginning of the season. So this was, when we started looking at this back in August, September, left most of the costs pretty close to what they would have been for a normal year, but reduced the anticipated revenue to 2/3. And so that's how the budget was made. And the budget was basically saying if we got 2/3 of our normal revenue and we kept our expenditures at pretty much typical levels, we'd wind up having to burn about $50K of the union savings. So we had a sort of a worst case scenario financial plan, which is that we had to spend all the money, but we we got a lot less in dues revenue. The reality, which you can see in the actual column, and then the variance, which is budgeted minus actual. The reality is that dues have been almost nil. These are TRU dues, by the way, not USA Rugby dues. Dues have been almost nil, but expenditures have also been almost nil. So we've only collected 6,800 in dues, although we had budgeted 80,000. By the way, last year we collected 115,000 in dues. But we've spent nothing on referees or championships or playoff travel grants. That's line 22, the club rewards other, which is a $20,000 line. Our admin costs for, website and banking fees and Wendy and Kat's time have all been very low compared to what we would normally spend. The clinics, that's the cost of the virtual clinics that we were offering in the fall. And then the summit, we've spent nothing of what it would norm budget to do, the summit and Hall of Fame, but we did get in money for, I think, 3 Hall of Fame shirts just after books closed in August. So the summit is actually showing $150 profit, but that's really money charged for received for shirts from last year that just happened to land on this year's budget. So, or this year's fiscal year's books, which started October 1st. So we've basically had about $7,200 in revenue or in expenses that we've got, and we've paid, we're in a basically a very break-even place in terms of our total revenue versus expenses. We're basically, if you go back up and look at our revenue number up there, Wendy, it's about 6,900, and we've spent about 7,800. So we've spent about $1,000 this year above what we've collected in dues. So the question then, which is our next topic, which is return to play, is both us spending money to provide referees and provide those kinds of services. And then once we start spending that money, we also have to collect dues to cover that kind of thing. And we know that we're going to be providing less service than we have in a normal year, both because the season is shortened, much shortened, and because there's no national playoffs for 15s. 7s are still up in the air. So we know that our referee costs are going to be a lot less. We know that club playoff grants are going to be much less. And there still might be some for 7s, but we know there won't be any for 15s. So what the board did is we debated what to do about our dues this year, and we voted to cut those in half from 50 to 25. Also, just a reminder, the USA Rugby dues were reduced from 50 to 35, and the $26.50 that people paid for a training membership will apply to that $35 of USA Rugby dues. So to be fully sipped, if you've already paid, that is going to be $60. And if you've already paid the training membership, then that's another $33.50 on top of the $26.50 that you'd already paid for training membership. For those who might be wondering, the $26.50 training membership number is $16.50, which covers insurance and the same kind of USA Rugby insurance with the same companies that has been provided in years past. So your insurance benefits are the same, both as a club and as individuals, are the same as they've always been. and plus $10 for the various other overhead expenses that USA Rugby has. So that's what the $26.50 training membership would be. The TRU membership, we basically looked at what we thought might be the due or the number of games that a club would potentially play in this shortened season, and assuming about 30 players per side, which is statistically, historically about what we've registered. 30 registered players per a viable competitive side has been typical over the years. What it would cost to pay for referees for that many games, and how much dues we'd have to charge 30 players per side in order to cover that number of games. And it came out to about 50% of our total dues. Typically in years past, we've spent somewhere in the neighborhood of between 60 and 70% of TRU dues on referees, but those were longer seasons. So that the math worked out to that number is actually pretty consistent with how things have been in the past. So that's the answer on dues. Any questions so far on the finances? Rock on. Okay. So I think the next thing that we've got, Wendy, is going to be where all the questions and answers I'm thinking are going to come in, and that is the return to play. So a couple weeks ago, week and a half ago, something like that, 10 days ago, I don't remember. Was it last Monday, maybe? It seems like things last forever now. We released the final, all the documents and waivers and protocols for our return to play under what we were calling stage 4+, which was basically saying that we're not in stage 5 yet based on what all the government regulations were at the time, but we did feel like it was okay to return to full 15s play certainly in some areas based on local conditions. The following day, the governor of Texas made an announcement which basically said, well, the publicity was that everything is 100% open. The reality, when you actually go and read the text of the governor's order, which we did, is that a lot of the things that we have in our policy are either still recommended or still valid. For example, while the governor says everything's 100% open, the state's guidance that allows counties to shut things down if COVID hospitalization exceeds a certain percentage of available hospital beds is still in place. Now, currently, every county in Texas is under that limit, which means that every county in Texas is good to go from that perspective in terms of being open. But it is absolutely possible that as local conditions change, that we could have places in our union where rugby might be possible now, but might not be possible in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, just depending upon if there's another spike or not, like we've seen in the past. So a lot of the recommendations from the state, although they are not mandated by the state, the recommendations of what is best practices are still apply and are still officially encouraged in the governor's orders, even if they're not encouraged by the political rhetoric that we might see. There's definitely a disconnect between what you hear in the news and then what they actually put in their orders. With regards to the other regions, they are generally Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, or we can really say Oklahoma City, Shreveport, and Little Rock. They are at least as, if not more open than any place in Texas. So Texas is really kind of our lowest common denominator, or that drives, not only does it affect the majority of our clubs, but it is at the moment, has been up to now at least, has been the most locked down. So where do we go from here, and how does the policy change versus what we published out there? First thing is, from a terminology standpoint, it's really less of a waiver of an existing lockdown. It really is just the procedure and process that we need to use in order to schedule games. One of the downsides, or one of the challenges that we have right now, is that the CMS that we've used for years is currently not available. And we are currently working with USA Rugby and Sport Lomo to try and get that CMS solution back online. And if not the existing CMS solution, then another one. But we don't have a way for you all online to enter your rosters for a game and have them be saved online where we can then validate them. So not only is that important, having rosters is that important for COVID protocols, for contact tracing, for notifying people in case somebody comes up positive and we need to let people know that they might have been exposed. It's also important for all the same stuff that it's always been important for, which is discipline, making sure that people are registered, making sure that there aren't any unregistered players, which would negate other people's insurance, coaches, referees, city parks and rec, clubs. Playing an unregistered player doesn't just affect that player or the outcome of that game. Playing an unregistered player can invalidate the insurance for everybody up the chain. So as a club, you don't want to do that. As a union, we don't want to have that. As a referee, we don't want to have that. As a facility owner, you don't want to have that, whether you're a city parks and rec or a club that has their own field, or a club that's playing on renting property from somebody else. So we still need to go through a match tournament process where you submit your schedules, you tell us when you're going to play, you tell us you're registered, you are collecting and changing and exchanging rosters and providing a roster to the referee, and that you're following the best practices that are protecting our members and your fellow teammates and your fellow opponents from unnecessary exposure. And the worst thing that could happen to us right now, since things seem to be going well, is for us to then suddenly run out, start playing a bunch of games with unregistered players, not following any kind of protocol, and then have an outbreak around a game or a tournament, and then we've got to shut back down again, and it throws a monkey wrench into everybody's rugby. So we still need to have this process, and we still need to follow this process. But to one of the questions that we did have, we do want to get people back on the field. So we are going to allow play next weekend if you can get your players registered and notify us this week of your games. And then we're going to ask everybody to continue to follow the process and try and get that stuff in 10 to 14 days in advance going forward, which honestly was the same as it was last year and years before. We always had if you change a schedule inside a 14-day window, there was a admin fee that we charged. Correct, Wendy? So that's always been that way, just so that we could manage the referee schedules and manage getting people where they needed to be to cover the games. That means that TRU will pay for the referees to be assigned to games that are approved. And it does mean that there is the possibility of discipline, whether that comes from red cards or yellow cards, or from playing non-registered players with respect to the games coming forward. So basically, this process is going to look it's going to look real familiar to those of us who remember running games before before we had CMS. And I see your question in chat, Ron. We'll get to that in a minute. I can Dodgy and I can go on at length about that. But where we would print out rosters and highlight on the roster who is playing in this game, write down their jersey number, hand it to the opponent, hand it to the referee, and we did that for years and years. That was the standard way of handling match documentation, and for right now we will be doing that. To your question, Ron, the CMS has always been driven by data from a separate application, which the previous registration application was WebPoint, and the new registration application is Sport Lomo. What has happened with the Sport Lomo software is they were supposed to have a competition management tools in their software, which they do, but their competition management tools don't have all the functionality that we need. And they've had a lot of trouble with the Sport Lomo rollout, especially on the monetary payment and routing side that USA Rugby and the Sport Lomo developers have really had to put most of their effort into getting right and fixing. And so at the moment, the existing CMS doesn't have any new registration data links to the member database in Sport Lomo. And the Sport Lomo CMS is honestly, we just don't feel as it stands today up to have all the functionality that we need. So I am currently in a meeting every Thursday with USA Rugby staff and Sport Lomo programming staff, trying to help them work through their issues. And we are, struggling to keep things going. Yesterday I was on the phone with the developer in Ireland and the USA Rugby and the SoCal GU president, because SoCal wasn't getting their money. And so there's that. Robert Rutherford. So question, is there a timeline when clubs will be able to register directly in Sport Lomo? There is not at this moment, and it relates to the payment issues that I was alluding to. Sport Lomo originally went with a credit card and payment gateway provider that would process the money and do all the direct deposits, called PaySafe, because that's what they used in Canada and that's what they used in Ireland. And they set everybody up in PaySafe. As it turns out, the PaySafe system does not play well with US banking laws. There's a lot of problems getting the PaySafe gateway to work correctly. So a call was made to basically tell Sport Lomo, hey, that's not good enough. And they are in the process of integrating to Stripe, which is a different payment gateway. And when we get the Sport Lomo software connected into Stripe and it's tested and we know that the money is going where it's supposed to go, then we'll open that back up for clubs to let their members register directly in Sport Lomo. We don't want right now to get y'all to set up to have your members paying your dues through Sport Lomo and then have you be caught in a place where you're not getting your money.
Yeah, so yeah, that's understandable. Thanks, here. It's mainly allowing us to individually register members if they would pay their dues through our website, which we use Sports Engine, right, to even pay their SIP fees. But I guess I don't understand what the issue with the payment is, but it's there, whatever, you explained it. So thanks.
So Ron, to your question, right now the dues, so right now dues that you pay, that members pay TRU, are successfully being routed directly to TRU's bank account. They don't go to a USA bank account and then we have to wait for USA to pay us. It goes into the Sport Lomo through their payment gateway and is routed directly to our bank account and our routing numbers. So the money from a credit card charge goes directly to our bank account. It never goes to USA Rugby. Where the people are having trouble is not that the money is sitting with USA Rugby. The money is sitting with PaySafe, and PaySafe has the money, but it is just a hassle to get it deposited because of PaySafe issues. So we're changing to a provider, but effectively the money is being paid directly to TRU. And I will be honest, and this is really a credit to Kat and Wendy for doing their work, and TRU is not having problems with PaySafe that other unions have been having. And I think part of that is because Kat and Wendy have worked so hard to troubleshoot things and make sure that things have worked right. But we have other unions, Empire, SoCal, et cetera, that have really struggled to get their all of their accounting and their account numbers and routing numbers and et cetera set up the way it needs to be. And part of that may have to do with state law as well. But we know that Stripe is a provider that is working well in all 50 states, and everything will be migrating over to them. Robert, with regards to Sports Engine,
I wasn't meaning to bring up, I just said, right, when members register with HARC, we usually give them the option, say, hey, we'll SIP you, give us an extra $100, whatever the SIP fee is.
I see.
So then we would go into the old one.
So you want to be able to register on behalf of them?
Yes, correct.
You should be able to do that today. I will, if you want to hit me up offline, I know that we've got some youth and high school and college organizations that are doing that today. So I know that it's technically possible.
Yeah, I think they're doing it in a batch. Like you send a list and you register 50. We're looking for one at a time on the front end.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll if you'll hit me up offline so that I can get some information from you on the particulars.
Yeah.
And then
I'll probably give Sally and tell Sally to hit you up.
And then I'll put that into our project pipeline, into the JIRA system that we're using to manage support tickets with Sport Lomo, and we'll put that in the hopper and get that in the queue for somebody to look at.
All right, thanks.
I don't think that Sports Lomo's membership module recognizes the old WebPoint passwords.
It doesn't.
So if you were, Rob, if you wanted to just register somebody, you could go in and make up a new username and password for them. Just like
you're a lawyer, aren't you? I don't think that's legal.
You're gonna get some confidential information about their age and telephone number that you don't already know. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how many players I've registered over the years.
Yeah.
All right. So Yeah, so let's go ahead and open it up to questions, as I'm sure they are some. And in fact, Wendy, well, actually, never mind, Wendy, I can do that myself. Hang on just a second. Da, 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 da. So, and I don't have names on some of these questions. So we've had some questions that were submitted to us through, we solicited questions from folks. And so I'll just go through these initially. And then we'll go through question number one was under the waiver eligibility criteria, it states if playing 10s, 20 registered players. Basically, there's a minimum number of registered players for a club to get a waiver to play a match. And that minimum number of players changes based on whether it's 7s, 10s, or 15s. Question is, does this mean if a club doesn't have 20 registered people, none of those players can play in rugby tournaments, or they have to SIP to another club in order to participate in rugby? So first off, we will allow motley sides. All the players must be registered to TRU member clubs, but you need to go through the effort of putting together a roster that is sufficient to cover that in advance through this return to play process, through this application process, or I don't want to say application, because right now with the current government orders, we're going to schedule games. We're not going to tell somebody that COVID says you can't play, because the governments have said you can play. But we do need to make sure that everybody's registered and get these protocols in place. So we'll take a look at our processes, but basically we need a valid roster in advance to schedule referees and play games. But we're not going to say that if you've registered to a club and your club only has 6 people, that those 6 people are basically ineligible for playing. That's not what we want to do. We want people to play rugby as long as it's safe to do so. And I'm going to offer or note both to Dodgy and Wendy, who have both worked very hard on these processes and are part of our return to play task force. Y'all have anything to add, or if I misspeak or am mistaken in something, feel free to chime in and let me know.
Kirk, I have a question before you continue, because it's going to play into everything else I'm reading here. Are we specifically talking about, I'm assuming we're talking about TRU sanctioned events. And if that's the case, what are we considering TRU sanctioned events? Is there going to be any event that's happening in Texas? Like, for instance, even the one this weekend, I know it's not TRA referees, and so which makes me believe it's not a TRA sanctioned event. I mean, a TRU sanctioned event. So could you talk about that?
Sure. So a TRU sanctioned event will be an event that has either, whether it's a match or a tournament, an event that has gone through this process and requested referees from us and has agreed to provide the rosters and provide a contact for us. In our process, we call it a COVID officer, but it could be the head coach, it could be the club president, but a basically designate a person that is registered that we can contact and reach out to in order to handle all of the processes around roster verification and tracing and so forth. So there is, but a sanctioned match would be a match that has been scheduled pursuant to our process. We have talked with the Kingwood folks who are hosting the tournament this weekend, and we are, still in the process of working out exactly how that works together. But be aware, no matter what you're doing and no matter where you're playing in the United States, whether it's a tournament in Shreveport or going to a old boys tournament in New Orleans, which I know some people did last spring or last fall rather, if you're not registered and you play in a tournament, a game that is not sanctioned by some governing body, we have college teams that might play in a college tournament hosted somewhere. Then insurance doesn't apply. There's no liability coverage. You need to be playing in events that are sanctioned by a governing body, whether it's TRU, Rugby, Texas, youth and high school, some other union. If you're traveling outside our union to play, you need to be playing an event that is sanctioned by a governing body, and you need to be registered. Does that answer your question, Justin?
Yes. And kind of to follow up in there, is TRU going to be, if more tournaments start popping up, granted it's only been one so far, but if more tournaments start popping up, is there going to be something that teams and players can reference to know what is and what isn't sanctioned?
Yeah, we can do that. That's a good point. We hadn't specifically discussed that, but we can absolutely maintain a schedule on the website and put all the things that are scheduled and say sanction pending, and provide that kind of a status. I don't see any issues with that.
Hey, Justin,
Yeah, I think we would just follow the same process where you submit once you're approved in the process, you submit your match report form through the website like we always did. When Kat gets those, she'll check the application process and say thumbs up, thumbs down, and then she'll put it on Who's the Ref, which puts it on the website. And then for tournaments, it's still the same process. You use the tournament form. I get those, thumbs up, thumbs down on process. And then if we say, yes, they're good, it goes on the website. So it's really the same process. We're just going to take a couple more steps to make sure all the other COVID safety protocols are followed, if that makes sense.
So basically, if you see it on the website, it's sanctioned. Is that what you're saying, Wendy?
Correct. The website calendar is going to be like yes, it's approved, you're good to go, referees are being assigned. Yeah.
Cool.
I have a question real quick. Harfew
Yeah.
from Kingwood Rugby. First of all, Kirk, I heard you mention Kingwood. Kingwood Rugby has nothing to do with that tournament.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So nothing. Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's adjacent to us at Humboldt. One of our ex-players, part of a touring side of D2, D3 players, basically, they're throwing that tournament. But
gotcha. Thank you.
Rugby. I did want to make a comment, though. Basically, you're all saying the training SIP's not good for any scrimmages that we might schedule coming up in the next couple months.
So it is fine for anything that you do intra-squad that is within your club. So any kind of full contact practice, scrimmage-like activities. If you want to schedule a game with another club and you want a referee there, the training membership is not adequate to cover that.
Okay. I think that's going to be a problem to get people to try to pay a bunch more money. I mean, I bought a full membership, but for all the people that bought a training membership, to play in a game or a couple games, or scrimmages, whatever you want to call them, I think that's going to be hard to make happen.
Yeah,
so
we had one guy upgrade his already, and I think the difference if you were already a training member was $30.
Yeah, $33.50.
Yeah,
$33.50. And yeah, I mean, a training membership is just that. It's a training membership.
okay, but usually when you pay a SIP, you're expecting to play a full season, and that would be what about we pay?
That's right, and that's well, and that's why the dues are cut in half this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've cut dues in half for that very reason.
Okay.
And Justin, just to circle back on something you'd asked about the tournament, I've been in touch with Matt Blackwell. And it's my understanding his intention is to comply with the scheduling process that we've got set up on the website. It is that scheduling process is primarily written for Club A versus Club B and not for tournaments. So we'll take a look and see if there's tweaks we need to make to that. If we're anticipating more tournament play later in the spring as an alternative to people setting up their own friendly schedules. So we can streamline that a little bit, I think.
But I know some clubs, I think Dallas, you guys have a tentative schedule that is what, 8-9 matches?
Yeah. We Robo can probably speak to that better. He was running point on that, but
yeah, all together it's probably close to 20 matches, including all sides.
Right. And so to give you an idea,
but then it also includes sevens, obviously. Like so.
Sure, that's right.
So
And that is one of the questions. Yeah, that is one of the questions that's going to come up too. So we do have a question that was presented about sevens specifically, and would sevens be covered? And the answer is yes. The $25 dues, TRU dues, covers a player not just through the 15 season, but all the way through the end of August and through the summer 7 season as well. Then the next question, since there are no cup matches, do players have to be sipped with a club, or will sip at large suffice? There isn't an at-large registration in the sense that there's currently no way to pay TRU dues without registering with TRU, which puts you under a club. We could create, and this could be done fairly quickly, a at-large club where players who didn't want to commit to a specific club could pay their TRU dues. But as long as we work out, in answer to that first question about allowing motley sides, I'm not inclined to do that unless there's a real need. But the trick is that you need to be sipped with, have paid your full USA dues and be sipped with the TRU. And typically you do that by sipping with a club. We could create an at-large club if there was demand.
So the issue or question I have with the at-large club would be, what happens when you start getting into, assuming there is a national pathway for sevens, what is the process during the season, or as well as during the seventh season, that looks like for transfer?
Sure. So there will be an open transfer period, just like there is every year, where you can transfer clubs to a club for sevens. So there's no, there shouldn't be any issues there. To compete in a pathway for sevens and nationals, obviously you will have to be registered with the club that you're competing for in that sevens pathway. And since we don't have a 15s national championship pathway, arguably, that players might want to sip with whoever they were going to play with in sevens, I suppose. But there should be an open transfer period to transfer to sevens without any waiver. And I will clarify that with our eligibility committee, but there won't be any issues transferring.
Kirk, did you answer Jeff Robertson's question from the chat?
I don't. Oh, okay. One waiver per club, per side, per match. Technically, it is per match in the sense that we have to get information for every match, who the roster is, all of that. But Dodgy, I believe they can probably sign the club waiver once and the player waiver once per player, correct?
Yeah, so you would go in, you fill out your online waiver application form, you sign the waiver agreement, and then you go to the match drop add form and add the matches that you want to schedule. So you only have to do the paperwork one time.
But you do have to enter each match.
You do have to enter each match, and then, you know, assuming that the hospitalization statistics stay where they are, we should be good. If there's some problem that comes up, then we would talk to the clubs involved about the waiver at that point.
Right. So basically right now, the rules were written, the language was written in a way that was assuming everything's locked down and we're going to open it up on a case-by-case basis. Now we're kind of assuming that everything's opened up and we may lock it down on a case-by-case basis. But the process of scheduling matches and getting your matches on the schedule is essentially the same. Okay, so I think we're down to number 6. That's been answered. General liability insurance, that has not changed. So the insurance company, the insurance coverage, the insurance benefits are all exactly the same as they were. You should be able to get a certificate of insurance from USA Rugby that you can provide to your facility that requires that proof. That's all part of your benefits from being a USA and TRU member individual and club. But the same as with every other year, if you're not registered as a club or as a player, then you don't fall under those policies. So the club registration fee, the certified coach, the minimum number of players, those are all the same rules that USA Rugby has always had in order to be an official club that is entitled to a certificate of insurance. And that's because the liability insurance costs a certain amount of money. And if you haven't paid dues that cover insurance premiums, then you don't get insurance coverage. Question.
Hey, yeah, Andrew Chapman here. We have an issue where our proper documents haven't transferred across in Sport Lomo. So we've applied for, or we want to apply for the waiver, but we don't have a level 200 coach because my level 200.
Gotcha.
Who
okay,
has
we can
that information? I mean,
yeah, we can fix that. If you will send me an email, president@texasrugbyunion.com.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to talk to Pat last week, and she said to talk to the education people, but it's kind of urgent because they won't allow us to train or
yeah. So you're already certified.
Yeah.
It's just that you don't have the certifications aren't showing up in Sport Lomo.
Correct.
Yeah. So
Correct.
that is a known software issue that is one of the bugs that has been on that they are currently working on, because I'm in those project meetings every Thursday. And there is a manual workaround where we can get USA Rugby, because they have the record, so they didn't lose the data. They know that if you're certified, they know that you're certified. But it isn't showing up in the Sport Lomo database, and it's a reporting issue that how the Sport Lomo report generates. So I can help get that resolved for you.
Okay, but they are not checking in Sport Lomo when they need to see, is there a registered 200 level 200 coach? They have their own
and
records.
They being USA Rugby issuing the certificate of
Yes.
insurance. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I can help you navigate that problem.
Okay, perfect. Because the same is if we want to book a match, we're supposed to have a level 200 coach.
Yep.
Now we
Yep.
have the
I
same
can-
issue there. So yeah.
Yeah, I can help you navigate that problem, and I can also I can also get USA Rugby to provide me with a list of all of our certified coaches from last year and their levels of certification, and
Okay.
we can close the loop on that.
Okay.
I will put that on my list. Wendy, if you'd also make sure that that gets in the minutes so that you can remind me.
Yeah, and there's one more on that. Sorry, it's probably taken away from the original question.
No, go ahead.
We have to do our safe sport and all those kind of things periodically, every 2 years, I believe it is.
Correct.
So, where do we do that? Who do we send it to? That kind of stuff. That's not available. I've got other coaches in the club saying, how do I update because they see it, but it's run out. So how do I update my safe sport? How do I do that? So we need
Sure.
to get all that in place before we
Yep.
can be a coach.
And that is exactly what we have a ticket in our software project management software for the Sport Lomo project, which one of our board members paid for it so that we could give them do some proper project management for these guys. And we have a ticket specifically on Sport Lomo hitting the Safe Sport databases, APIs to pull those certifications and get that stuff updated. And so I will check on that for you as well.
Okay, great. So we should go ahead and put in the match requests with TRU then now.
Yes, you should
prior
put
to
in the
that.
match request.
Okay.
Absolutely. Put in the
'Cause we
match
have a number
requests with
scheduled,
us.
yeah.
Yeah, put in the match requests with us. I will work with USA Rugby on the certifications issues so that we can clear any roadblocks that you need in order to get your certificates of insurance.
Yep.
And then as long as you've got one level 200 coach whose certifications are current, you're good as far as the match scheduling is concerned. And then we can get additional coaches, get their updates going. Because all of those applications were a punch out to the Safe Sport website anyway. It wasn't handled within USA Rugby. You link to it off the USA Rugby site, but the actual Safe Sport course was happening in Safe Sport's application. The problem is that the certification data is not populating back into Sport Lomo.
Great, thanks.
Yep, no problem.
And I would just, in the match form, I would just use, there's like I think it's description or additional notes. I would just put in there, working with Kirk on L200, anything you guys can give us that's like, this is in process, or we know we're working on it. I think that's really just going to help streamline as we kind of get through these first ones.
And especially having that in writing so that we're not counting on my 57-year-old caffeine-addled brain to remember every conversation we had today. But yes, those are solvable problems, and you are not the only person struggling with those issues.
I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, great. I'll get it to you, and then hopefully we'll get it sorted. Good.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last, does this mean the clubs pay the refs since not covered by TRUs? No. If you apply for if you schedule your match through our process, TRU will pay the refs, just like we always have. That's why we're still charging dues. If we weren't paying refs, then there wouldn't be much justification for us to charge dues. Or certainly couldn't charge $25. So that number was specifically arrived at looking at, for example, we mentioned Dallas earlier, if you played 8 games and what TRA will bill us per game, how much dues would we have to collect in order to pay for those 8 games? How many registered members would we expect to be involved with the 2 clubs that are playing that match? And just doing the math and saying, okay, what what amount of dues will cover the anticipated referee costs without, blowing a hole in the bank account. That's literally how that was covered up. See a question in chat. Is it possible to see who has sipped on the opposing teams as we have in the past? That's a great question. And I believe the answer is yes. And it looks like Justin just posted a link, but you should be able to. And if not, then we need to make sure that you can.
Kirk, I do think we need to maybe just do a test, and I'll just do it after the call, but we need to see if someone has a training membership, do they show up? What do they show up on the public roster for? I haven't done that.
Yeah, if they have a training membership, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
When it says training on there, it'll have training.
Oh, perfect.
And then
okay, good.
Have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that should cover. So basically, what the TRU is going to do is we're going to provide referees. We're going to continue to provide the website discipline. We are hoping to do Summit and Hall of Fame and education activities. We already did virtual education in the fall. We'll continue to, we've done some individual player grants because high performance is still happening. And we've had some TRU members who were asked to come to high performance camps or Eagles events that we've supported those people as they've gone on that journey. So we're still providing services, but we're not providing $50 a person worth of services because we haven't had a season. So we've reduced those dues, and we did look at everything from what would it be if we charged no dues to what would it be if we charged full dues. And we ran the numbers and discussed it as a board, and the board of directors reached a consensus on $25. Dodgy John, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just popped a question in the chat, but for the referee thing, is this just for the friendly 15s games, or will this also be provided for the sevens tournaments? Because I think they were only provided for the official sevens, and if we did
great question,
we paid ourselves.
Yeah, great question. We have not discussed with internally or with the Referees Association what our agreement would be with the referees for tournaments this summer. So at the very least, if there is a national championship or pathway to sevens, we will definitely be paying for referees for qualifiers. As far as refs for friendlies for non-qualifying sevens tournaments, we haven't discussed that specifically. That's a great question, and I'll need to take that up, and we will circle with the Referees Association and the TRU board, and we'll get an answer to that, and make a decision on that by our after our meetings next month, so that we can give everybody plenty of heads up going into the summer what they're looking at.
And just on sevens, I'm on the National Competitions Committee for club, and we want to have a sevens series or tournaments that are very similar to what we've done in the past. I think it's just going to be a bit more flexible is what we're looking at. So just so you guys know, we're looking at hopefully having the same thing. It might just be a little bit later in the year, but that's the goal. So, but it's all very fluid, as we know.
But no, that's a great question, and there might be room in the budget or justification this summer as part of our trying to build the game back to normalcy, in the TRU doing more in terms of paying for referees for non-qualifying tournaments, which we haven't done in recent years. But I hesitate to make a commitment without actually talking with the referees and running the numbers and doing the math. Let's see, Marie has a question on that note. Dodgy and I were talking about a set of sevens tourneys before summer sevens. Those women's tourneys, are those 15s, sevens, 10s? What are we talking about there?
It'd be modeled on what the women's D3 did in the North last year, which was basically on a Saturday, get 3-4 teams together, play a few matches.
And play whatever you've got numbers to play?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would assume that TRU would provide referees for that as part of our development efforts to grow the game.
Yeah, and that would be open to the women's collegiate TRU sides
Right.
as well. if they're-
Who are all, they're all dues paying members as long
Yeah.
as long as they register. Yeah, so they would absolutely be included. Any other questions? I think we've got everything in the spreadsheet, but that doesn't mean that we don't have other questions out there. If I've missed something in chat, or if somebody's asking and they're on mute, then let me know and we'll try and get it answered for you.
So I don't know if this is necessarily for you guys as TRU admins to answer, but is for the people that look like me, the nice fat 1B guys for vaccinations. Has there
I'm
been
one of
any? Yeah. Is there any talk, or has there been any talk of doing 10s? Maybe June 10s or September 10s or something? I don't know. Because a couple of guys in our team have brought it up, but you can't really play 10s unless other people are playing it as well, right?
We have on the Red River, we've talked about that this summer might be a year of, you could do whatever you want. If you want to play sevens, play sevens. If you want to play 10s, let's play some 10s. But I think it's just been broad ideas at this point, nothing concrete.
Yeah, that's why I said it's not really for you guys. It's more for the other clubs. Is anybody talking about it? Or is there a way to gauge that, I guess?
I think on the last Red River call, we had Phil trying to do like a Hong Kong format. And I think that could be applied to almost anything if we can kind of get it to a good place.
I suppose, Wendy, we could do some kind of a survey and do a push to all the clubs and say, hey, who would be interested in XYZ, or it wouldn't be necessarily a bad idea for us to get a sense for how many clubs are planning on submitting waivers and submitting schedules. I mean, we know that some are further ahead than others in terms of making plans. I wouldn't mind having an idea of what to expect. Not only does that help us from a planning standpoint, but it also helps us from a forecasting standpoint in terms of membership dues and money, and making sure that we're getting that money's being routed correctly. If you don't know how much money is supposed to come, then you don't necessarily know you're being underpaid.
Yeah, we can do a survey. That'd be easy.
So yeah, that would be valuable. And then that would be information that we could provide to Robert and others and make that available to them as well, so they would know who's looking to make schedule matches and who's looking for games. Maybe we can help facilitate that exchange of information.
And I think tournaments, I think that's because we normally don't have tournaments this time of year. There's a couple, right? There's a few that happen in the spring, but it's usually not normal for us. So this will be very interesting for the referees to manage.
Because everybody's
tournaments.
Yeah, everybody is it's playoff time. We're not going to be doing tourneys.
Right.
It really is. I mean, guys like Jeff and Ron will remember, it really in so many ways feels like we're going back to 1985 in how we look, Steve Daniels is on. Hey, Blue.
Yay.
Yeah, it really does. It really does feel like some Back to the Future stuff in terms of how we're running rugby. The difference being that we would all be doing this AGM in a bar somewhere with a keg in the corner, and that made for highly contentious 6-hour AGMs. It was not a good thing. There we go. Yeah, for 2021, tries will only be worth 4 points. and 2 subs per match.
Oh, geez.
Only props get to kick. Old draft.
Okay, fine. I'll
Hey,
do
there
that.
you go. There you go. All right. Any other questions?
Just wanted to reiterate, Kirk, that this is Dodgy. I'm happy to be a resource for anybody as they're going through that match scheduling process. We'll probably see a flood of stuff this week, and I can help Wendy and Kat with going through that stuff.
Yeah, and guys, by all means, go ahead, submit what you think you're going to be able to do. I would rather you schedule games and then have to cancel than hit us up on a Thursday and say, we suddenly want to play on Saturday. Thinking forward, planning ahead is going to help all of us do this right. So, submit your matches, and let us know what you're planning to do, and that lets us plan to provide you the services you're going to need, and that includes things like making sure that we get your coaching certification sorted and so you can get certificates of insurance and all those kinds of things. If we don't know that you're trying to get something set up, that could be tough to do on a 2 or 3 day turnaround. So let us know. And then, we're going to do everything we can. The hopes are that the 21-22 season will be a normal season of rugby. And I think that we have a better chance of doing that in Texas than they do in some places in the country. You got places where they want to start playing their cup rugby in August. They might still be having some COVID related issues, but hopefully for us, we normally don't kick on until for a normal 15 season until October, November. And I think we're all really hoping that by then we'll have CMS, we'll have vaccinations and herd immunity, and we can go back to playing rugby and thinking about how we make things better rather than how we survive. Good question from long sleeve jerseys. God, no. Good question from Jeff Robertson. What GUs are playing a cup schedule this spring? I know that I believe, cup schedule, that's a open definition. Since there are no national championships, I don't know what constitutes a cup schedule or not. SoCal is planning to play this spring. Florida is planning to play this spring. I believe NorCal is not. I know that Empire and Northeast have already canceled and Eastern Penn, I believe, have already canceled their spring seasons. Midwest, it varies by union because Midwest is still on a territory LAU model. So what they do in Ohio is not the same as what they do in Iowa. It's not the same as what they do in Wisconsin or Minnesota. So Midwest is all over the place. Pacific Northwest and Rocky Mountain are shut down. I don't know about Mid-America. I'll have to check. I don't know about True South and Carolinas off the top of my head. I'll have to check. But it's a mix. But mostly it's places where COVID is either well under control or where the local governments have a pretty laissez-faire attitude towards getting back to normal activity. So, Hawaii and Alaska are playing because their COVID numbers are good. Florida and Texas, we're getting back into playing because our governments say, go for it. Doesn't necessarily mean that our numbers are as good as in some other places in the country. It's all over the map. Anything else? I like no tees, only sand piles. I think we should go back to that anyway. All about it. Make your kick and then just play. Anything else? All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to the meeting this morning. Again, please let us know if you have any questions or so forth, and we'll carry on. Thanks all.
Thank you.